I'd like to welcome you today to the Gold Coast Plastic Surgery Podcast. I'm Dr. Mark Doyle. I'm a specialist plastic surgeon and I've been doing this for the last 30 plus years. Today we're going to be talking about nasal surgery and I'm pleased to be able to introduce to you Dr. Stephen Clyde, a nose and throat surgeon. Between us we should cover everything you need to know about nasal surgery. I see a lot of patients coming in to see me just for the cosmetic side of rhinoplasty and changing shape of noses. Often we get conversations that start to run along the lines of snoring. Usually the wife complains about the husband snoring and he just ignores her and says he doesn't snore. It's not something I fix, but I hear it often enough. Stephen, that must be right up your alley. Tell us about snoring.
Yeah, well, a lot of people snore. It's more common in men than women. It's not perceived as a ladylike thing to snore. But women do snore and do complain about it as well. But most people are unaware that they snore. They don't hear it because they're asleep. Mark Twain recognised that. So I talk at, as well as doing a lot of snoring surgery, I talk at men's health nights and
the football clubs?
Yeah, football clubs, men's health nights, where they'll have someone talking about prostate cancer and blood pressure, and I'll come and talk on snoring. Or I'll talk to a school parents group about snoring problems. So many of our patients, as I say, most of the patients are men. Many of them have nasal obstruction, and so part of fixing snoring requires fixing the blocked nose if we're going to fix it surgically. But snoring is due to fluttering of the soft palate. That's the part, the uvula, little thing that dangles down between the tonsils and the soft palate, the edges of that. That flutters in the breeze, causing snoring. So when we go to sleep, our muscles in our throat relax, our nose sometimes becomes more congested, and we get this fluttering sound, which is the snoring noise. We also have a more potentially dangerous problem of obstructive sleep apnea. So with more relaxation of the muscles in the throat, we actually get collapse of the throat, intermittent collapse of the throat, causing obstruction of breathing, which is obstructive sleep apnea. And that will cause people sometimes to wake up tired, be unrefreshed, have brain fog during the day. It can also cause impotence. In children, it can cause bedwetting. In children, the problem is usually due to big tonsils and adenoids. It's a different causation than in adults. So many of my patients are sent in or brought in by their wives. They're often men brought in by their wives saying, please fix their snoring because otherwise he's going to have to sleep on the couch or in the spare room.
That's when the husbands start to get interested.
That's when they get interested. It's interesting, women complain if they snore at all. And it's not so much when they're married. I sometimes see women who've been widowed and their husband's passed away and they're now either wanting to meet a new partner and they're embarrassed by the fact that they snore and it's not perceived as ladylike, or they go on a road trip once or twice a year. They go on a bus trip with a friend and they go out to the country towns, and then they're sharing a room and they're very embarrassed to fall asleep.
Okay.
So women will have surgery if they snore and someone else finds out about it. Men will have surgery if they have to sleep in another room.
What else can people do with the snoring?
Yeah, well, the three main treatments for snoring would be CPAP, that's continuous positive airway pressure, which a lot of people know about, sleeping with the pressure mask on. And that's very effective. That works on about 99% of snorers, whether they have sleep apnea, mild, moderate or severe. CPAP is very, very effective. But we know that of patients who buy a CPAP machine, that only 55% I think was the figure, 55% of them are using it properly 6 months down the track. So it's very effective. It's just not something that a lot of people don't want to use or won't use. Another alternative is a mandibular advancement splint. So part of the problem with snoring is the jaw drops back when you sleep, particularly if you're lying on your back, and the tongue drops back with it. Now the tongue is quite a big structure. It attaches to a point on the chin just there. And so if you pull the chin forwards, you pull the tongue forward. So by wearing a plate or two plates in the mouth, one on the top teeth, one on the bottom teeth, with lugs on it, and you can adjust those lugs so that you can pull the bottom jaw forwards. And that pulls you sleep like that. And then in the morning you take the plate out and you push your jaw back. And that's very effective for snoring too, but it's probably It's probably effective in about 75% of patients. It's tolerated in about 75% of patients. That leads to something like a 60% success rate. But again, only 60% of people or 50% are still using their mandibular advancement splint 6 months down the track because it's very uncomfortable.
Okay.
But I never would consider operating on a patient without telling them about those options, and often and in most cases, without my patient seeing a sleep physician to have them assessed for sleep apnea and to offer that as an option.
Would you do the CPAP before you did the operation?
There are some patients with severe sleep, because the success rate for surgery for severe sleep apnea overall, if we took all comers, is somewhere between 10 and 20%. So surgery is not a great operation for severe sleep apnea. By selecting out the correct patients and suitable patients, which is really what's done in every other operation that surgeons do, but by being selective about people who should be suitable, so that requires a sleep study and a certain way of examining them by an ENT surgeon, we can assess who might be suitable for surgery. So my success rates for severe sleep apnea is about 75%. Okay. But that's because the ones that I'm not going to win with, I don't offer surgery.
Okay. Always a good principle, isn't it, with surgery?
I think that's how everything works. That's how surgery involves two things: selecting the right patient for the right operation, and then doing that operation properly. Correct. If you do a beautiful operation and it's the wrong operation, you're not going to get success, no matter how well you do it.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank you for visiting our podcast today. It was a pleasure to introduce Stephen Clyde, our ENT surgeon, and I hope you've gained some valuable information regarding nasal surgery in general.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you.